Hi, Ashley Eberly here. Like Kevin said, with Writing to Freedom, I do copywriting and editing services. Before I jump in here, I am going to have my video off only because I am easily distracted or my camera. So just follow along with the PowerPoint. And if there's any questions, feel free to use the raise hand option at the bottom, and I will try and answer that as we go through. Okay, so we are getting into the basics of SEO. Some of you may already be familiar with some of this. Some of it you may not be familiar with, but I do like to kind of start at the beginning and take it back to the basics and work from there. In this, why is this not working? Okay, so in this presentation, we are going to be going over a just brief introduction to SEO, search engine rankings and what they mean for your business, SEO versus SEM, as well as the components of SEO and diversifying your business's digital presence to help increase those SEO rankings. So as some of you already again may know, SEO is the practice of optimizing your website content to increase your business's position in search engine rankings. So search engines like the following: Google, YouTube, Bing, Yahoo, and more. Google being the one that we're really going to focus on today, only because they do have majority of the market share as far as search engines go. So the first question I want to ask, and some of you may have done this before, some of you may not have, is if you've ever done an incognito search for your business using target keywords. So for example, the example I'm going to use today is lawn care, because I was recently doing some personal research for my property in terms of landscaping and lawn maintenance. So through this, as far as where your business populates in the search engine results, the keywords, the page titles, the meta descriptions, alt text, your page locations, as well as the content and the speed and ease of use of your website are all things that are involved in Google's algorithm as far as where you populate in those search engine results. There are more than just those items, but those are really the easiest to touch on without getting into some very heavy HTML code and things like that. So as I mentioned, Google does have the market share. As you can see from this image, Google carries almost 70% of the market share in terms of search engine results and rankings, or search engines, which is why I chose to focus on Google. Most of the time, other search engines tend to follow the same kind of algorithm trends that Google does, but these do fluctuate. So these numbers are not fixed day to day. Sometimes Google may only have 64% and Yahoo may increase by that 5%, but it does vary day to day. However, consistently, Google does have the majority of the market share in the United States for search engines. So SEO and SEM, if you've worked with SEO, chances are you've also been exposed to SEM. So SEO are, again, that search engine optimization. Those are organic results and traffic that that results in traffic that you're getting to your website. The SEM is the search engine marketing. We are not going to be touching on that today because those are paid placement ads where you have to put money into paying to have that placement on the page. For example, referencing the search that I did recently for my own personal stuff, lawn care, Barry, Vermont, very easy keywords, very broad keywords. And as you can see right there at the top are ads. And if it indicates ad, that is a paid placement. Paid placement can be good depending on the industry. However, I typically like to focus on the SEO only because that saves businesses money in the long run. And you typically get better leads and better traffic than what the search engine marketing does for you, only because, I don't know, like you guys, but me, for example, I scroll past those ads as I'm looking for stuff online. So the components of SEO are keywords. I'm sure everyone has kind of heard that word being thrown around, that tag being thrown around. The key with keywords is making sure that the wording that you're using is relevant to your market, not relevant to your industry or your product, but relevant to your market audience. So you want to look at your keywords as if you are sitting down and typing in a just general search for your services, for your business, for your product. Some of these keywords are going to be a lot more competitive. For example, the ones that I used, lawn care, those are pretty general versus getting into like specifics like landscaping. So if it's a case that you're in an industry that has really competitive keywords, like auto service or restaurants or those kind of things, this is where it's easy or where it's good for you to focus on alternate keywords, secondary keywords, and synonyms. So the words that mean the same things as your target keyword. So in this example, you can see landscaping also came up, and if it's a bold, that means it is directly related to the search that was run. So you see lawn care, berry here, just like my search here. You see landscaping, which is a synonym. It was not in my like search query, but it does come up and populate in Google search engine results because it is affiliated to lawn care and it's a synonym for lawn care. And then again, you have down here lawn care, just a different variation. So if you have popular keywords, do not get stuck just on those. Look at what other words you could naturally use within your content to enhance that SEO ranking. And that leads into the naturally incorporated piece. Google's algorithms, as I mentioned in the Smarts and Sense email that was sent out to register for this, change about 500 to 600 times a year, which means that they're changing anywhere from 1 to 2 times every single day. And as there is more available online, as there's more people getting into the market for various industries, unfortunately, as there's more scams and spam going on out there, Google bots are getting a lot more honed in on the language that you're using. So it used to be a case that it was quantity over quality. And what I mean by that is it used to be a case that you could plug in, if you're in lawn care, you could plug in lawn care as many times as you could within the content on your website, and all of that positively affected your SEO ranking. Now, because of how much redundancy there is online and throughout websites, Google is looking at that quantity over quality model, and that's actually now negatively affecting your SEO rankings. So if you have a business or your website is one that has not been really looked at in some time, the first thing that I would really encourage you to do is go back and look at the language that you're using. Eliminate redundancy and information, because that is not doing you any favors in terms of those search engine rankings. And then another important part with keywords is to include the keyword itself, the target keyword, in this case, lawn care, in the URL, in the first paragraph in your content that is coming up in results to the search query, your alt text, as well as your meta tag and description. Those are interchangeable terms. And I'm going to get into a breakdown of all of that stuff in later slides. As we get into more of the alt text, the HTML code, the meta tag, that is really in-depth SEO work. And if you're not familiar with SEO, it can be very daunting. So I'm going to touch on those items, but it's not necessarily my focus of this, because I'm trying to present easy, accessible ways for businesses to increase their SEO versus trying to make them experts in writing HTML code that'll positively affect their SEO. So the first thing is the URL, which I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with, and that is the web address. I used, again, my lawn care example, Bellavance, which is a local company. Hopefully they don't mind me using theirs as an example. Their URL is a very simple, bellavancelandworks.com, and the landworks piece is right in the web address itself. So again, utilizing those target keywords in your web address is key. The page title. This is where the search engines look to see if your content on your website is relevant to the search query. So again, the page title itself, you want to incorporate that target keyword. And as you can see here, they did with landscaping, which is why that populated in one of the top organic rankings. And then the meta tags and descriptions. These are snippets of code that are actually embedded into the HTML for your website that provide information about your web page and your content to the search engine so that they can properly display what is relevant to the search query, but it also what content should be included in the search results from your website itself. And then I have an example here. So meta tags and descriptions, those are interchangeable terms depending on who you talk to. Some people use as meta tags, some people use them as meta descriptions. They kind of go back and forth, but I did just want to kind of give an example. So this is just a very generic one. It's obviously not specific to the lawn care search that I was doing before, but as you can see, this is the description. So right here is the Right here is the description. The NYS Zone Incorporated Software Development Company specialized in applications for Windows and so on and so forth. So that is the description. If someone is looking for development companies, that is the description that Google and other search engines are going to pull from to determine if your content is relevant. Just because you have a description written into the body of your website does not necessarily mean that that is where Google is coming from. It really is more beneficial to embed these, just like the format is here, with the meta name equals description, content, and so on and so forth. And again, this gets more into the code writing part of HTML, which can be daunting for people. I could go into this portion of it and subheadings and all of that stuff for hours and hours and hours, just because there is so much here around SEO that does affect SEO rankings. But again, kind of just trying to get into the basics here. And then alt text. This is clear and descriptive content to communicate the information that is in images within your website. This is not to be confused with decorative images. So if you use for an example, like a feather icon on your website, or a picture of, just a backdrop of scenery, that stuff you do not want to put into you do not want to put a descriptive blurb into the alt text option there, because it is going to, again, kind of drag down your SEO rankings because it's stuff that's not necessarily relevant to your content. I was going to use Cave Elevance as an example here as well. However, as I looked through their website more, their images unfortunately did not carry alt text. So what happens with alt text is, if your image on your website loads correctly, this is what you will see, obviously, when someone's looking at your website. If it does not load correctly for some reason, either because it's not a mobile-friendly site or someone's search engine isn't compatible with your website host, which sometimes does happen, the images will not always load correctly. And if there is no alt text associated with that image, it will show up like this. And I'm sure you guys have seen that in many, many places before. This is really what you want to see. And that alt text for this one is saying Isidore of Seville, as you see. This isn't just to help with the Google rankings and things like that. What this does is it actually translates directly to the visually impaired that are doing web research. And how this translates into, again, your Google rankings from there is Google looks at the accessibility of your website and your content to determine, part of that determines where you rank in those search engine results. So if you have website that has a lot of visual components, pictures, imagery, that kind of stuff, and there is no alt text, that is negatively affecting how Google ranks your website. So again, having very descriptive, clear content included in that alt text option is really key here, especially, again, just making your website more accessible for people. You don't want to get too descriptive with this. You don't want to get so muddled in the details that it is too much information. You want to keep it very clear and concise while communicating the imagery. I'm going through this much quicker than I meant to. So diversifying your digital presence. With this, there are things that you can do on the back end of your website and the back end for your business that are going to help enhance your presence on search engine results. For example, as I was going through membership for the chamber and just kind of seeing what would benefit businesses in terms of content that I was presenting today, it was really astounding how many businesses I found that do not have their Google My Business page claimed. If you are a business and you are not sure that you have your Google My Business page claimed, please go and do that. And I can certainly walk people through how to do that another time, because it can be a little convoluted depending on how many people manage the page. If you're not the person that manages the business, you may not be able to change it. So definitely go and claim that Google My Business page. In addition to that, for professional resources, having a LinkedIn account, having an Alignable account that is linked to your business is great. You definitely want to be present on as many platforms as you can. Now, you don't want to be so present that you are just inundating your content with repetitive stuff. Obviously, you want consistency across platforms. But as we get more into the social media side of things, if there is a market that does not apply to your target demographic for your business services, for your product, whatever the case may be, then it may not be as beneficial for you to, or it will not be as beneficial for you to post content to those. Now, that does not mean it's not beneficial to have a presence here, because all of that Google looks at on the back end. So again, Google My Business page, a LinkedIn account, Alignable. For social media resources, which more and more people are getting into for marketing specifically, having a Facebook, at least a Facebook landing page. More and more people are using Facebook as the hub for things. And as it transitions more to meta, not to be confused with meta tags and meta descriptions, I think you might see a shift in that a little bit, but I can't predict the future in that regard. So again, having those Facebook and Instagram platforms, the nice thing about those two is that they are owned both by Meta. So typically you can link both accounts to post to both at the same time. So you're not needing to double your work and add another place to post content. Snapchat is another one that's really popular. That runs more for restaurant industries, as well as kind of targeting a little bit of a younger demographic. And then there's Twitter and TikTok. TikTok is a little touchy right now, only because there is so much, what's the word I'm looking for? Controversy, if you will, around TikTok's targeting. So personally, I'm not a fan of TikTok. However, professionally, depending on your market, depending on your industry or your business, TikTok might be the best placement for you if you're trying to reach the demographic that that platform appeals to. So moving on. Knowing your market is key to creating relevant content for your website, whether it is blog posts, whether it is bullet points, whether it's an introduction, your about page, descriptions of your products, descriptions of your services. Knowing your market is key, and this circles back to your keywords. If you don't have a clear grasp on who your market audience is, you're going to have difficulty establishing those target keywords to utilize throughout your content and on the back end of your website. So really taking a look at who your market is, what your market is, and then going from there is going to be key in terms of optimizing your presence on all of these digital platforms, not just the social media ones, but also Google and the other search engines. So as you can see from this, Facebook, the average user is 25 to 34 years old. Just to note, all of these demographics are current as of right now. And someone just asked where the 40 plus people are. I only picked up the top demographics for these. So obviously social media platforms don't stop at 34 years old. However, that is the bulk of these markets in terms of the audience who is utilizing or who are utilizing these social media platforms. So I only pulled from the top one or two in the case of Snapchat, only because that really shows how those are beneficial to that specific demographic in terms of that age category. Obviously, we could break down demographics a lot more specifically than we are here. You could do by male, female, you could do by location, income, that kind of stuff. I really just focused on the age because most people can kind of figure out who their market is based on the product or service that they're offering. So for example, if you have a physical therapy practice, for example, most of your, not all, but most of your patients are typically going to be athletes or people who are in the older years in terms of age. As you age, your bones just get weaker, unfortunately, you pull muscles easier. So something like that industry is not going to be as beneficial on Snapchat and having a private presence on Snapchat as it would on Facebook and things like that. So again, I only pulled from the top or one or two demographics in terms of these age range, just to give you an idea of what's going to be most beneficial based on the age of the market that you are trying to reach. So Facebook, 25 to 34. Instagram trends 18 to 24, and typically most of the users on Instagram are males. So if you're trying to reach a younger male audience, having a presence on Instagram is key. Instagram is also another really popular place for restaurant posts, but that's more for branding versus active marketing campaigns. Snapchat, as you can see, gets into, again, a little bit of a younger demographic. These demographic polls and information that's available online does not pull from 17 and younger, because most of these platforms, you have to register as an 18 and over person. We all know kids who have access to these platforms. Obviously, people don't stick to that age, but that's why you're not seeing information on demographics as far as what trends with the 17 and younger demo. Did I answer your question about the 40 plus people here? Hopefully. Okay, so to recap, I know I just threw a ton of information here, but to recap on this stuff, providing content that's relevant to your market is key. And again, that's not just in your keyword, but also the content that you're providing. If you have an about page where you're sharing information about your business, about your beginnings, about your family, if it's a family-owned operation or anything like that, that information is not always relevant or beneficial to keyword search results. There are ways that you can remove that content from being included in Google's analysis. They call it crawling of your website. And again, that gets more into the HTML code, which can overwhelm people, and I certainly don't want to do this. Another thing that you want to keep an eye on with your website is if you have inactive pages or broken links. I don't know about you, but one of the most frustrating, I never finished this slide. One of the most frustrating things for me as I'm doing research on a project, as I'm trying to find things, is when I get into a page where it has a click-through option and the next page that I try to go to is not available either because it cannot be found or it is a broken click-through link. If you have these pages on your website, even if you don't think they matter, they do matter for SEO algorithms. Google looks at those pages, and the Google bots that are running these algorithms that are looking through your content, that are assessing your website, see those pages, and to them that translates as this is not an active or as active and up-to-date website. So if you have inactive pages and broken links, remove those, disable those, delete those. All of this kind of incorporates into completing an SEO audit. There are a ton of free resources online as well as paid resources where you can complete your own SEO audit of your website. Now, with like anything else, you get what you pay for. So obviously paying for a service in that regard is going to be more in-depth and more thorough than utilizing one of the free services. Again, the free services are a lot less daunting and overwhelming than some of those paid services. Another easy way that I like to do SEO audits is not specifically with your website, but what I'll do when I'm doing research for an account and seeing how their business is performing online compared to competitors in their market is I'll open an incognito window and do a search for general words around that business or product. So if I'm looking for a real estate attorney in Central Vermont, to see what keywords, one, are being paid for, because those are really ones that, yes, you want to use, but you don't want to focus 100% on because they're so competitive and they're already being paid for. So again, this is where your synonyms and secondary keywords come into play. And then also take a look at what your competition is doing out there. Not that I'm saying to mirror what your competition is doing by any means. However, if you're in the same industry and you're in the same area, often looking at what their content presents and provides will help you hone in on how you want to present your content and how it will be relevant to your audience. Utilizing your page titles, the meta tags, and that alt text really does go a long way in terms of increasing your SEO presence and really optimizing your ranking or increasing your ranking with search engines. And again, if you're not comfortable getting into that, there are services out there that you can use. It's one of the things that I do. All of this are things that I do. So really utilizing those to the best of your ability and to the benefit for your business. The key with all of this, all of your content, is looking at it from a user standpoint. The biggest thing or biggest mistake that I see business owners who manage their own content do is they write their content, they write their descriptions from their perspective. That's not what Google's looking at. That's not what your audience is looking at. So you really want to try and shift your perspective and look at it as if you are your target market doing a search online for the services around your industry. And that'll really help tweak your content to appeal not only to your readers, but to those Google algorithms and other search engines. Website speed and navigation are really two big things, which again, I'm realizing I have navigation on here twice. These are two very large things that come into play with SEO, but they're not always things that people can control in terms of the management of their content and their website. So if you manage your own website with things like WordPress, with Squarespace, Shopify, that kind of stuff, this you can do. Typically, those sites don't have too many issues with the speed of the site and moving through the site. But again, if you have a lot of content that's not relative or relevant or inactive pages, that does slow down the speed of your site working, which again negatively affects those SEO rankings. Navigation, what this is obviously how intuitive it is to move throughout your website, but also how quickly Google and the user can locate the information that they are looking for within your website. So if you have content that, again, going back to lawn care, and I'm looking specifically for weeding services, for example, if I have to go through 4 pages of content to get to the page that is specific to weeding services around the lawn care search, that is one going to deter people from continuing through your website because people don't like to have to work for anything. So making it more difficult to find the content that's relevant to them does not help anything. And 2, that negatively affects your SEO ranking. So you want to make sure your primary content, your primary service, your primary product, whatever you're really trying to market at that time is either on your homepage or a redirect from your homepage to a landing page for that service product, whatever the case may be. And then again, diversifying those platforms. The more you do online and on digital platforms with your business, the more relevant you become in those search engine results. Keep in mind, none of this is an overnight solution. These things do take time, and because SEO algorithms are literally changing day to day, sometimes multiple times a day, it is important to stay educated on these topics because they do change and shift what they're looking for. And as AI becomes more universal in terms of creating content for websites, and things like GPT has been really popular. Simplified is another content writing app. As AI services grow in terms of writing that content, Google is going to get a lot more stringent as far as the algorithms that they're working with, because they're trying to make sure the topics and content that they're finding is authentic content. So again, if you use platforms like these to create content for Facebook, for Twitter, for LinkedIn, for your website, whatever the case may be, make sure you're not just copying and pasting that AI generated content. Tweak it to make it sound more authentic to language that you would actually use in your business, for your market, for your product. And then we have over here keyword and competitor research. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but I do want to touch on it again because it does help to do that research. Again, there are services that you can pay for, but if you're a business owner or you are someone that manages content for a business, this is key in determining what is going to be effective within your market in terms of those target keywords. Another thing that I wanted to mention as far as how Google looks at your website that I do not have included in this is security. If your website is not a secure website, Google is not going to pull that up in the first page of results 9 times out of 10. So if you do not have an SSL certificate for your website, I strongly encourage you to get one. And again, there are resources available on Google to do that, and that secures your website and makes it a lot more user-friendly. I have firewall and things like that and antivirus software that stops me from even visiting any pages that are not secure websites. And again, I'm sure most of you do as well. So making sure your content is accessible is key, and making sure that you have a secure website does directly affect that. I believe, next page. So that is all I had. Again, I went a lot quicker than I intended to. And as I'm reading through my notes, there was one more thing that I wanted to mention that ties into your digital presence elsewhere and diversifying that digital presence and platforms. The more hyperlinks and backlinks that you have embedded into your website, not to your own content, but to other content that is relevant to your market, Google takes that as a positive for your SEO ranking. So for example, if you work in insurance or financial investments, and there is an article published in Forbes that's very relevant to your business or to your product, and you're looking to share that within your content, direct link to that Forbes, my brain just went out of left field, direct link to that article on Forbes website or wherever it may be, because Google looks at that as a reputable primary hyperlink source that just increases the relevance of your website in those search engine rankings. And again, making sure that the links that you currently have embedded within your website do work. If they do not, fix them or remove them completely. Any questions on anything?